Hello, and welcome back to another week of the DP World Tour Picks and Bets Major Edition. Tom Jacobs, good to see you. Excited for this week ahead here.
I am. I'm more excited about this than I was the weekend at the Sadao Open. That was disappointing for us. Good win for Simon Forsstrom though, right? Like, it really exciting for him. I think you've mentioned him a couple of times on the show, and we talked about him kind of before the new year because he was one of those qualifiers, qualifying king if you like. And yeah, definitely ready to move on to Oak Hill this week. Proper golf tournament, really good golf course it seems. Although there has been some, difference of opinion on it, so I'm sure we'll find out on Thursday what everyone thinks.
Yeah, I'm really excited. I didn't think I would walk into this week as jacked up as I feel kind of, even Sunday night. Like, I think, really turning the page, and maybe because I think I'm in on the course overall. I think that's kind of drawing me. Of course, the live drama, amplifies things. We had Brooks win before the Masters. You have DJ win this week. You get to see these guys at something different than Augusta. I think that's an angle to discuss. But this week, more than anything, I think is going to be my favorite type of golf, which is just an absolute brute test. And I think that's what appeals me the most. I'm not somebody who's here for the aesthetics or the prettiest course, or and that's probably not Oak Hill from what we, see. I think LACC is going to be unbelievable too, and going to be different from what we see here this week, extremely different. But it's going to be hard. It's going to be cold. It's going to be windy. It may be soft. And you just, when par is a good score, Tom, you'll find me glued to the TV. And I think that's what we're going to see this week.
Yeah, so I think it's one of those ones where I don't think it's going to be quite that. What was it? We had like the +1 at, was that a Shinnecock, right, for the US Open? Yeah. And then Bethpage, where we had a really I don't think it's quite going to be that, but it's not going to be what we saw here in 2013 either, where kind of Webb and Duffner just, tore it up on the second day and got into a big scoreline, 12, 10 under, whatever it was. I think probably 5 or 6 under, a little bit like what we saw at Southern Hills last year, is probably a good target. I know some people think it might be nearer to 2 or 3 under. I just don't, just because of the way a lot of the players, like, I think if you're only getting 2 or 3 under, I think you're going to get beat by Scheffler or Rahm. So I think you've got to do better than that. But yeah, I think it's going to be a great tournament. I think that this Andrew Green is he considered basically the new Open doctor, or he's the guy that's going to be changing all these courses in the future. He's already got his hands on East Lake already as well. So yeah, I'm really excited to see. I don't remember too much of 2013 other than going back and watching it. Like, I don't remember sitting there, really. I remember Jason Duffner just chewing tobacco in his mouth for like 6 holes, but like, I don't really remember the actual course. And I'm a bit like you. I'm not massively one of those people that like it's really drawn into aesthetics and the shapings and all that sort of thing. I really just like the testing holes and what that means. And this week we've got 2 par 5s that are not just going to get torn apart like you do in other tournaments. You've got a front 9 where you basically will struggle to kind of make birdies, and I think it'd just be a really unique test. And one of the things I kind of, the way to put it into the simplest terms for me is when I looked at a player like Matthew Fitzpatrick. Like, 2013 Oak Hill was perfect for 2015, 2016 Matt Fitzpatrick, and the new Oak Hill is almost perfect for the new Matt Fitzpatrick. And that's not to say that I'm betting Matt Fitzpatrick, but like, I just think that as a player and that development, you can sort of tell the difference in courses and what that's meant over the future is how I look at it.
Yeah, no, it's great. I think it's more for the modern game and what we saw prior, right? So I think there's just, if you hit the ball far, I think it is still probably the biggest advantage that we're going to see. We can kind of talk who are the longest guys in the DP World Tour, who maybe got the best short game. I think you're always going to have laser irons, but a combination for me of long game off the tee and ability to chip or at least recover is going to be important. So that's kind of my thought process as I approach. I guess at the end of the day, the DP World Tour guys are priced in the range in which they are because they aren't the Schefflers or the Rahms right now. The ones that have graduated, like the Fitzpatricks or the Fleetwoods or the Hattons, which truthfully we probably think all set up pretty decent to me. This week. I'm intrigued at all 3 of them, But we're really here to, I think, discuss how you're going to round out your DK lineups, how you're going to find some low-owned upside guys if you want to look at a top 20. I mean, if I'm going to find somebody, which I'm pretty intrigued, I think, at least one of these guys on the outright card, because of all courses that you get to see or all events, I think this is the one that we often see, the long shot at least in the mix, or, right? I mean, we could have back-to-back years of triple-digit winners in the PGA Championship.
It's all well and good looking at the fact that 3 of the last 4 PGA Championship winners have been winning their second PGA Championship, right? We've had JT winning his second, Brooks going back-to-back, and Phil Mickelson in 2021. But Mickelson, as you said, was a long shot. Mito should have won it last year. Things could have gone very differently, even at the halfway stage at Harding Park. Like it truly is. It's not quite what people think it is, in the sense that, like, it's not long shot city anymore, like it was in that sort of area where, like, Rich Beam and Sean McKeown and all those kind of people won. But I don't think it's far off. One of the things I wanted to pick your brains on, as someone that's quite analytical like you are, we always mentioned, like, this is going to play into the big hitters' hands and this big hitter dominating all those sort of things. Are all the best players in the world just big hitters now? Like, is it like, if they were just, like, if Justin Rose and people like that can get back to the top of the game, Adam Scott, etc., they're not the biggest hitters anymore. So if they can just find a form, I just wonder sometimes whether, like, we put so much stock into, like, the actual statistic of driving distance and things like that, and thinking like it's a must-have, and really we're just looking at the players, because that is the player's skill set. Like, I know that obviously being a bigger hitter is advantageous, and that is why the people are at the top of the world rankings. But I think it's a little bit kind of chicken and the egg, like, which actually comes first? Are they just the better players, the longer hitters, and that's why it looks more important, or is it more important, that's why the best players? It's a tough one, I think.
Yeah, and I think what ends up happening is it's so easy to get into the wormhole or the groupthink or the general consensus, right? A lot of us are saying this is Winged Foot all over again. This is Bethpage Black all over again. That is my thoughts. That's my true, like, reasoning is distance will provide advantage. And more or less, I think it just is just fine details, in the sense of, if you're between Morikawa and Victor Hovland, you lean on Victor because of the extra distance. Is this, if you're debating Dustin Johnson or Cameron Smith, who are priced similar, like, well, maybe this doesn't play into Cam's hands as much, right? Maybe that's a pretty drastic difference, but
no, I agree.
I think that's the tie. Now, at the same time, I can vividly remember, because Winged Foot was one of my better weeks I've ever had in the DFS size of things. That was prior to the knowledge of thick rough, hard to hit fairways, not knowledge, but the group think that played into the Bombers' hands. Bryson wasn't a high-owned golfer that week. He wasn't a popular bet. Like, it was very different than what people really thought. They thought the Brendan Todds of the world were going to show up and dominate Winged Foot, or at least have a better chance, when it really took them out of competition in some ways, right? Now, Bryson might be owned, or at least interested by people, even when he's one of the worst golfers out there. And I'm even intrigued, but because this is that type of advantage. So to your point, are we buoying too far or boomeranging too far to only think about those type of things, when, I mean, heck, if Wilco Nienaber did what he did today at U.S. Open qualifying, was in the PGA Championship, I would probably be interested, and maybe that is too far into the course fit mold.
That's maybe what I'm getting at, is that, like, maybe we're just emphasizing it too much, because even at Winged Foot, right, which is probably about as drastic as it gets, and what people are alluding to, like, Bryson won by 6 shots over Matthew Wolff, and that's why the distance kind of comes up with that. But then Harris English was 3rd. Zach Johnson and Webb Simpson were 8th. Adam Long was 13th, and as we said before, he's long by name but not by nature. Lucas Glover 17th. Like, Alex Noren, not the biggest hitter in the world. Sung Ji In 22nd. Like, you always get these tests where they're littered, because I think sometimes everything we've heard so far is it's like, oh, it's a 320-yard force carry, or you're going to have to lay it with 3-wood. And I think sometimes those guys that are just forced to go with 3-wood and hit their approaches better almost had the decision made for them, which just really streamlines the process. So this is not me advocate, like, when you look through my picks at various places this week, like, mainly I've gone with guys that are topping the total driving charts and things like that. But I've tried to kind of balance it with those that are a little bit more accurate and great short games as well. So I was just interested to see, like, are you completely fully subscribed to the it's a Bryson of 2020 week, or is it we can spread it a little bit?
I maybe overthink things, but if everybody is zigging one way, it's not a bad idea to zag the other. And I think that could ultimately lead you to opportunities with some of these golfers who are very, very good to still figure it out, right? I think they can.
I think when we look down our DP World Tour regulars this week, if we're just going by the people that can hit it far, it's going to be a limited pool of people that can really contend. Whereas, like, if you're talking about the Yannick Pauls and the Ollisons of the world and things like that who are in form and playing very good golf, like, are we going to rule those out? Like Stewie asked on Twitter, like, is Yannick Paul a long hitter? And does he have a good chance? Like, I think he has a good chance, but he's not a long hitter. So it depends how you're looking at it. Like, I think they can make weekends and things like that. So really interested to get into this discussion, I think.
Yeah, and I love the way Ben Raza Jazzraz, who's on with Mayo quite a bit, talks about kind of stacking lineups in a certain skill set, right? Like, to your point, there might not be a long list of driving heavy guys that you get the DP World Tour side, but you might go for a short game lineup that has Cam Smith and Reed in it, and then you get down who Reed has done well at Wingfoot too, right? And then you get down to Pablo, Larrazabal, and then you play there, right? Like that could be that swing of lineups where the guy's coming off a win, right? Like I always, the pronunciation that gets me the most is Pablo's, because I think of Jose Maria Olazabal and Pablo Larrazabal, and it really
blows your
mind.
Yeah.
But I think I got it there. But that is like a way you could go about and get some different guys into your lineup. So I think before we dig in, let's make sure we shout out our audio listeners. This is coming to you on a Tuesday versus a Monday because of a major week. Pat will put it up for us today. You can find us on Daily Fantasy Sports Picks and Bets, The Mix, available on all your podcast platforms. We love and appreciate the support. It's been a fun year on the DP World Tour. We're looking forward to continue that. And this is kind of an edge. I guess the next three majors of the year, we get a decent chance, to have some of our guys represented there. People forget that Guido Migliozzi almost won the U.S. Open 2 years ago. So, it definitely can happen. Just a few strokes away from beating John Rahm. It's a world of difference, right? So, but let's dive in. As we look at it. I guess we can still discuss Hatton, Fitzpatrick, Fleetwood, and maybe that's not fair to call these guys DP World Tour players anymore because they're really not.
Yeah.
But of the top of those guys, is there anyone that you find the most?
I guess I'd chuck Lowry into that as well as like a that same selection, right? Hatton. Okay. I think that he's just playing the best of any of those guys right now. Like I think that when I was thinking of who to pick this week and I looked at the English players, and to be honest, this was the first time I've really felt like the English players had an edge. And you normally think about the Open Championship for that, but I think the way that Hatton, Fitzpatrick, Rose, Fleetwood have all played this season, and I think it's because of the designated event schedule they've had to just continuously play in the US. I think it's really beneficial for them. Hatton pretends that he hates the world, pretends that he hates golf. He shot a 64 last week and said that he was crap. But he's just playing so well. I think Hatton's actually playing like a top 5 player in the world, if not top 7 or 8, driving it incredibly well. The concern may be that the two top 10s I think he's had in this tournament have both been, fairly easy courses like Belle Reve and places like that. Baltusrol as well, I think. But it was the Shinnecock Hills effort that really caught my eye and how he's just played. Like, he's very versatile now. Like we're used to sort of seeing him do really well in Birdie Fest on the DP World Tour and really well in the kind of slugfest like Bay Hill on the PGA Tour. And now I think he's kind of finding the balance between being able to play both of them. I think it's really important. Like if there's one round this week that's low scoring, like if Thursday just allows players to score and shoot 5 or 6 under, I think he can do that. If players need to shoot 1 or 2 over on Saturday or Sunday to stay in the mix, I think he can do that. And I think that's a really important thing. So for me, Hatton was clear. Yeah, unless we're including Justin Rose, who I obviously love. But like, Fitzpatrick and Fleetwood both make decent claims, I think.
Yeah, I mean, I think Lowry's, to me, far and away the worst of the four of the selections. I would just not still siding with Fitzy, right? Coming off of a recent major win. Like, he's priced below Hatton, right? Like, and maybe that's just not enough credit to the upside versus consistency. I don't know, but I think it plays very much into Fitz's new game. Like you said, he can chip it very well too. I haven't landed. It's Tuesday. I haven't landed on all my outright selections.
Yeah, it's a really hard week.
I'm pretty intrigued there, and he's been so much better the best Augusta performance he's had in a long time, right? Like, his last 5 majors, worst finish is T21 for Fitz.
Yeah,
probably the best of anybody. Maybe Xander, I think, is top 15 in the last 4, right? Like, Fitz is showing up the big stage.
Well, I think that, and when I consider this a hybrid of a PGA and US Open, and what's his last 2 major results? Like a 5th in this event last year before going to win at Brookline. Like,
and that was an awful final round. He should have won.
Yeah,
I mean, he could have easily won.
Yeah, like he played the worst of anyone in the top 10, right? So I think, and that is probably how he learned to do what he did at Brookline. Everyone talks about it. So I think, I mean, I don't know. I haven't looked at the kind of projections yet for DraftKings, but like, I imagine he's slightly lower owned than he has been in recent weeks, because I don't see that much chatter about him, and I don't see why not. I think he's that perfect blend of still having a really good short game and gaining those strokes off the tee that he never used to when he came into these major championships.
Yeah. Yep. I mean, this course probably was a heritage type the first time around, right?
Yeah.
It's definitely the last time around. Yeah. But okay. I don't want to spend too much time on the guys that we're not here to really discuss.
Yeah, I understand.
But sell us more. You're big on Justin Rose this week, correct?
Yeah. So I just think, for me, his upside is not being looked at. Like, I think people just think he's washed, and I don't think that can be further from the truth right now. Like, he's finished inside the top 29 in every PGA Championship since 2017. He's got 4 top 10s in this major. He finished 16th at the Masters after winning Pebble and finishing 6th at the Players. He was 9th going into that final round at Augusta. He was 2nd going into the weekend at the Heritage, finished 25th. He's gained, like, in approaching 8 straight events. He's gaining pretty much in every statistic other than off the tee. So I understand the concern there for people, and I think that's why people are looking elsewhere. But I just look at Justin Rose, and I think if it gets tough, yep, he's going to like that. If it gets to 500 or 600 a day, yep, he's going to love that. If he gets stuck around the greens, yep, he's going to put up with that. So to me, Justin Rose ticks every box. Yeah,
I mean, when you get him at a major, what was the major in which he just kept hitting it around? Like, he made every single putt, every chip. I think it was Pebble, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Where he was able to. So overall, I think for Rose, when you get him in a spot like this, it is just something that he would just be more leaned into a different style of lineup. Or, I mean, and maybe that's too much to stack everything around that side of it, but
I think you can put him in,
fit the typical.
Like you said earlier about putting some of those short guys in. Like, I think you can put him in one of those, not profiling as one of the short hitters, but being capable, kind of a nice blend between the two. Like, I think he's really a beneficial person to have in those lineups. I just picture him finishing at worst 25th, and that's a really important thing for DraftKings lineup. So, really like that. But I guess the thing that people want to hear is these kind of lower price guys but I think all of that was to say that it's a really competitive English and GB&I market this week.
Yeah, absolutely. So we're looking, right? So I think there's some sticker shock to me on some of the prices for at least the first 2 that we enter here. Thomas Dietrich, 7,400. Victor Perez, 7,300. I feel bad for Dietrich, man. Sunday was tough, right? We've seen this story many of times. Not shocked to see Forsstrom come through when Dietrich. I mean, he was done by the turn. He was not in the mix at the turn. At a home open like that, for him to capture that win. Any any between those two because I'm much more intrigued at the next two personally than I am at these top two.
I didn't even look at these two this week. Like, this is probably the first time I've had a tournament of late where I've not looked at Victor Perez, but I just have no interest. Like, if he plays well, then great. Like, he was 22nd at Harding Park, but that's not the type of PGA Championship we're accustomed to, and I don't think he suits the one we're going to get this week. And Thomas Dietrich, I just cannot deal with. Like, he's not for me. I mean, again, is the skill set there? Probably, but I don't view him as like I did Peters back in the day as someone that could really flash a top 10. I think we're better off going down to the next group.
Yeah. So if you want to talk about bomber with a short game, find it hard pressed, I guess, at least from a distance side of things and a chipping side of things. And I mean, even the putter a lot this year. And I don't know if I'm scared off by the form, Tom, of Min Woo Lee.
Yeah.
Like everybody was excited for Min Woo Lee at the Masters, right? It was all the rage for them. I mean, you looked into his lead-in form there, right? I mean, he top 5 basically every event to close out and start the DP World Tour. Decent at the Honda, almost wins the Players Championship. Match play, not great, but you show up there, and that performance at the Masters probably rubbed a ton of people the wrong way, right? Gets a shot at the Byron Nelson last week. Might have lost the most strokes gained approach in the field.
Yeah.
It was really, really bad.
Same with Augusta as well, right? Like, he was terrible
right?
approach at Augusta.
Yes. But man, if it's, I mean, he showed up at I think it was St. Andrews and was up there. I mean, obviously at Augusta the first time around, he was back 9 on Sunday, front page of the leaderboard. I just don't know if I care about form with Min Woo, and he could absolutely play into the tailor-made type of golf needed for this course.
Yeah, and like you look at his kind of major performances, and they're just very volatile. Like, miscut of the Open, 14th in the Masters, miscut the PGA, 27th of the US Open, 21st of the Open, miscut the Masters. They're just such big swings. Like, it's basically, if he makes the cut, he's finishing in the top 30, which is a really nice thought process to have. The worry is he's gone 5 events now without gaining strokes on approach. You have to go back to a miscut at the at Bay Hill for the last time he gained strokes, and that includes when he finished 6th at the Players as well. But in that same span, he's gained off the tee in 4 of those 5. So it really depends if you think that, because I think everyone's going to struggle on approach. Like, it's such a tough golf course. Everyone's going to miss greens. They're small greens. So is that going to be mitigated slightly? He's still great around the greens. He's still hitting it powerful off the tee. Skill set wise, he fits. And this goes back to our earlier conversation of, like, do you just lean on that and hope for the best? And that might be the case with someone like Min Woo Lee. Statistically and consistency-wise, I'd be afraid. Skill set-wise and just the inner belief of what he is as a player, I think he's worth a shot at 7-2.
Right. I mean, he is 10th in the world, according to Data Golf, on distance. He's 36th in the world when it comes to around the green. He is 32nd in the world when it comes to putting. I mean, if you could dream up a scenario of that, I mean, that is what – it's not like Bryson was that good of an iron player, right? I mean, he was way better of an iron player than I guess Min Woo was at the time. But, I mean, if I go back, let me see, 20 – would have been 21 when it happened, right? That U.S. Open. I mean, he
2020 was
his numbers were so good that week. They were so good. But his lead-in approach, he lost in 3 straight events. 4 out of 5 on approach, right? That PGA champ. Where was the PGA Championship? That was Harding Park, wasn't he?
Harding Park was. Yeah, he played well for 36 holes there, I think.
Yeah. I mean, he had no irons coming out of COVID, basically. Like,
and we just don't know. Like, I think actually, if he'd been off for a couple of weeks and didn't play last week, and we were looking at these stats, I think, okay, maybe he's had a kind of refresh. It's just the fact that it's been so recent. He's been so bad with the irons. But I just think it's the first time at a major championship where I've not really looked at course form, because I think it was irrelevant from 10 years ago, and I've not really got too caught up in approach and things like that, because I do just think it's going to change so wildly this week. So if you're keen on the skill set and you believe in Min Woo Lee, I think you play him. I think you play him in one of your more risky lineups. I don't think you want to put him in your really high lineups, but I think this is going to apply to a lot of the guys we're talking about tonight because unfortunately we're dealing with a pretty slim pool of contenders, I think.
So there's two more that are 7K or above.
Yeah.
Nikolai Højgaard, any interest?
No. The Højgaard twins have made 5 major starts between them. It's the first time they've played in one together, and they've made 1 cut each in majors. And that's not detrimental going ahead. I don't think they're going to struggle to make cuts in majors going forward. I just don't think they know yet how to play well in majors. Like people are talking about like Max Homer doesn't know how to play well in majors yet, and he's played like I don't know, like 15, 16 events. I have no idea how many it is, but like 14, I think it is. But like they just haven't played enough in major championships to know. And yes, he was playing some decent golf on the PGA Tour in limited starts. And yes, he's kept that form up on the DP World Tour, but I'm out for now.
Yeah, I mean, it's. I just have a hard time not playing Minwoo over him. You know what I mean? Like, just
we've seen it. We've seen him play well in majors, Minwoo, and like he's got that kind of bank of form, that bank of characters to lean on. Adam Scott, Jason Day, all these people that know how to win majors.
He's not a good chipper of the golf ball either.
No,
you know, like he's just not. He's just not. And I guess, you know, including there, I mean, I think the other one, like the jump out to me of 7K and above, but maybe even all of the DP World Tour guys, to me, is Minwoo Lee and Lucas Herbert. I'm in Lucas Herbert 7K flat. I'm very, very intrigued, even in the outright market, by Lucas Herbert personally, just because one, he has done it in majors too, to the degree of a 13th at Southern Hills to a 15th at St. Andrews. And I might be one of the only ones that kind of make the parallel because it's maybe it's tough, but I just think some of the guys that did well at a course like St. Andrews, you kind of do the same exact thing maybe here that you would do there. You hit it a mile and you're like wedges or shorter chips are the most important. You're going to score a lot more. You have to, you know, play some of the similar game, but on a way different setup. And so I kind of like a little St. Andrews Herbert, like he did there. Bryson obviously played really well there too. That's to me, I mean, the last time we saw Herbert, right, he won in Japan. He had come over after doing really, really well in the match play. And we just know he's got the sky high upside. And what does he do well? He hits the ball a long way. He chips above average and he putts it incredibly well. So, I mean, if it hit, what was intriguing too at St. Andrews is out of nowhere, he led that fielded approach out of literally nowhere.
Yeah.
So he does have, I mean, I don't trust it. And strokes gained in Japan we didn't have shot link there like we had the last couple of events, but he was accurate from what they said off the tee. So getting him accurate off the tee, because if his accuracy is terrible, right? He sprays the golf ball, but it's no different if you're a foot off the fairway here or 20 feet. Like it doesn't matter. So I think they could play into his favor. And
also, I think they talk a lot about angles and stuff, so you can miss the fairway if you're just at the right angle. I think it's pretty strategic. Like I think when you look at him, he probably thinks his way around a golf course pretty well and knows his limitations in terms of accuracy and things like that. Just another guy like Minwoo Lee, really, in the sense that if you're not scared of the irons, then play him, right? If you're looking for some higher upside players, I thought he was really, you mentioned St. Andrews, he was great. Like when you think back to, he was so solid. Like every time people thought he was going to go away, he just kept sticking in putts and things like that. He just wouldn't go away, and he showed that in the match play and things like that. So ultimately, I think he's a grinder, and that's what you want in this event. I'm a little bit afraid of the irons in the same way that I was with Minwoo Lee, but like not enough to kind of go, do you know what, rule it out completely. I much prefer Herbert and Minwoo Lee over Højgaard and Perez. Put it that way. Like if that's the pool we're looking at, then that's what I would say.
Okay, I think we enter a polarizing range as you start to get into 6Ks.
Yeah.
You lead it off with the one at 6,900, and we won't talk every single golfer, but I think these early ones we got to hit on. Do we have an update on Bob McIntyre? Last we knew of him, He withdrew after the first round of the Italian Open. So I think these early ones we got to hit on. Do we have an update on Bob McIntyre? Last we knew of him, he withdrew after the first round of the Italian Open. So a pretty big deal being, where he won last year, where the Ryder Cup is at. That back must have really flared up because he wasn't out of making the weekend.
No, he was actually playing decently as well. I haven't seen any update on that, but I would be incredibly cautious for that reason. I think the fact that we haven't heard anything is potentially detrimental. I think if he was fit and firing, I think we'd have seen a lot more social things from him and a lot of things from the DP World Tour themselves. And look, he's been really impressive in the Open Championship and the Masters, but he hasn't done anything else anywhere else. Like I know he's got a couple of.
The one thing I would say is he hasn't missed a cut. Like he is
one
of the longest major made cut streaks. Like very impressive for somebody like him to get the opportunities that he does to fly over and make cuts, right? Like that's not no one else on the DP World Tour is doing it to that degree. I think it's very impressive. And if we had a healthy McIntyre, I would like it a lot personally. Like I think this is the golf he loves.
But he was gaining on approach before he withdrew at the Italian Open, which is trustworthy data. He was just terrible on and around the greens. It could have been completely protected that he pulled out, and he might be absolutely fine. I don't know. I don't see him yet being that person that's comfortable with playing these true. Like I don't even really consider the Masters like a real true American major. Like I think that's a very worldwide affair there. Whereas it feels like a real home event for the PGA Championship, and that would be my slight concern. I think we would be forcing him in based on the fact that we know his skill set's good, hoping that he's fit.
He has been seen both days on the practice round, for what it's worth.
That's a bonus.
Yeah, I mean, high risk. I mean, I've run so hot. What do you see
the upside is on him?
I think he has a good all-around game, right? Like that is, I think he just gears up for the test, right? Like he's above average in distance. He probably can spike with the irons. He can chip it pretty decent. When he was playing well, he was gaining strokes in there. He can get hot with the putter. I mean, what, top 12 in 3 majors in the last 3 years for him like this? Like, no one else has that on the DP World Tour. Does anyone else have that in this price range? I mean, I'm sure there's probably a guy or two, but I don't know. Overall, for me, when you look at Bob, when you look at a brute test like this, I mean, that's kind of where I just see the grit that I'm surprised Has Jason talked Bob at all this week?
No, nothing, which is quite surprising actually.
Yeah.
I think he's very much honed in on the Masters and the Open for Bob, but I guess what the counter needs to be to whether we should be interested in Bob is, are we interested in Yannick Paul or Jordan Smith?
I thought I was going to be more interested in Jordan Smith than I am. What's concerning to me, and maybe I'm being too harsh on him, but I expect somebody of his pedigree on the tour right now to have more than a run of top 20 finishes or top 25 finishes, right? I do agree with you that his off the tee game is potentially the best on the DP World Tour right now, but I still think it's a long way to go. I want to be in on Yannick. I really do.
I do.
Yanni P, man, like, BK's boy. Are you there? Do you think he can do it? Because he's been hitting a lot of greens.
I think it's just going to be so hard. Like, it's his first PGA Championship start. And look, this is a guy that I've been betting every week at 20-1 on the DP World Tour. Like, should I just be taking him at 400-1 in a major? I always say, like, I want to take these guys in bigger events because they're a bigger price. I think there's just this lack of belief at the moment, which is sad for us, but like the lack of belief at the moment that these kind of best of the rest guys on DP World Tour are quite good enough to hang. If I was to say what is the upside for Yannick Paul, I think if you can go 32nd, 35th, 40th, like I think that's a positive weekend for him. And I think that's definitely in his kind of range of outcomes. I just don't see that kind of top, like if you've got a fit, healthy Robert McIntyre I think he can finish in the top 20, top 15. I think if Jordan Smith finds a putting stroke, he can finish 25th, 28th. I don't know that Yannick Paul can do that because he just doesn't have that necessary length really off the tee. He's like the Webb Simpson, Zach Johnson of these majors in the past, and Kevin Kisner's without being as good as them.
Yeah, I mean, the one, I guess, positive is it is maybe a little bit more natural on this side of the world for him than maybe some of the other guys, right?
Yeah.
Versus just him growing up or playing in Arizona for a while, his brother. But he also hasn't been inside the top 15 in strokes gained off the tee on the DP World Tour in the last 6 events, right? Like it's a different type of setup for him overall. So I don't disagree. And I don't know, maybe I'm being hard on it too, but there's a little bit of sticker shock for me at $6,800 for him. Like I would have expected it to be potentially a few hundred less. Like I would much rather land on Meronk, right? Meronk like $6,700.
It's just not a debate at the moment. Like he's just such a better course fit Meronk. He's got that win in a really important event. Like I want to see these guys step up and win when they really need to, and that's Adrian Meronk, and that's what he's done. Like we mentioned, you being on him. Like we mentioned, the kind of opens that he's won, and he just fits. Like I know I've sort of said, and maybe contradicting myself a little bit here, that like I don't want to put all my eggs in the off the tee basket, but if we're going to play these DP World Tour players, I think we need to look for those that can do that, and I think that's Jordan Smith and Meronk over Yannick Paul at the moment. So of the 3 or 4, if we include McIntyre, Meronk is clear at 6,700.
Yeah, I mean, yes, I think it has to be, right? It just has to be Meronk, just in a three wins, right? I mean, what was it? 17th match play was decent there. He didn't advance, but he was probably one of the better golfers overall. Was kind of unlucky not to advance. 14th at the Honda. It is just really, and you look at the game too, right? Above average distance, above average around the green, above average putting. Like that's what we've looked at for the 3 guys. So yes, Meronk. Now, my question is, I feel like we would have been very in on Ryan Fox not that long ago. Has that gone by the wayside? But a 26 at Augusta is very sneaky. He hasn't played since though.
So he's had. Did you see why he's been off?
No.
So his wife was pregnant and so childbirth, and he had pneumonia. So I guess it just depends how he comes back from that. Like he's been off for so long that he may have had the baby, that's all done, and had pneumonia, and that's all done. And if that's the case, then Ryan Fox is he still, because last year he was bordering, like I was saying, he was the most improved player and most underrated player based on what he was doing on the DP World Tour and potentially ready for the PGA Tour. Is that still the same this season? I guess is the real question. Like he's not dominating events like he was. A little bit to your point with Jordan Smith, like I probably want to see him better than 20th, 11th, 17th, 14th, but the 14th, 27th and in the match play, really impressive. So the PGA Tour starts are way more impressive than what he's been doing on the DP World Tour, relative to, strokes gained, I guess. So off the tee, he's still gaining massive strokes, did so at the match play, did so at the Valero, even missing the cut, did so at the Players. So, yeah, I think if we know that he's okay, then I think Ryan Fox is definitely a fit for this kind of event. And like you say, 26th for the Masters, 16th for the Open, 27th for the PGA in 2018, which I believe was a pretty tough one. Like, why not?
I think what I'm intrigued out of the way I would view it with him is he might have the most approach upside of any of those guys that we have seen. Maybe Smith can rival that too, but I mean, he might have the best. I believe at the match play, Fox was a clear number 1 in ball striking that week. So I think that's kind of intriguing from that sense. Why I was sticker shocked, I think, with Yannick was the fact that I think Bjorn Olsen has had as good of a year as anybody in the DP World Tour. He's $6,500 this week. I'm not sold that I'm in on Bjorn, but there's got to be ways to look at him this week. Do you have any thoughts there?
So basically on my, so I did a column with Ben Coley for the Sporting Life. We were kind of giving special markets, and I bet on Thorbjorn Olesen to win the top Danish, which is only a 3-player, heat, right? He's only got to beat the Højgaard twins, so that might not be saying too much. But my theory behind that was he could probably win with the top 30 finish this week, and I think he can achieve that. Like, he's had 2 top 30 finishes in this tournament in the past. Between 2012 and 2014, he was 27th, 40th, 30th. Even going back to 2017, 2018, he was 44th and 56th. Is he as good as he was in 2012 right now? Possibly not. But he has, like you said, he's been so consistent. And I think this is a Ryder Cup player. I really do, for Europe this season. We know that he's obviously gone close again last week. He is playing better than Yannick Paul. He's got the win that Yannick Paul hasn't. He beat Yannick Paul by 4 strokes in Thailand to win. So, yeah, like, if you've got him, Fox and Moronk, 6,500, 6,500 and 6,700 respectively, how do you go? I don't even know how you pick Perez over Thorbjorn Olesen. Like, I don't even know how they're that far apart. Like, Perez shouldn't be 7-3.
Yeah, and that seems to more the misprice than we look at it here, compared to Olsen.
Well, he's priced with, like, Zach Johnson, which, to the greatest respect of Zach Johnson and Kevin Kisner, they're guys that are shorter and they're both 6,500 and they're probably past their best. I think they're both going to admit that. And I know Zach Johnson turned up at like Wingfoot, and we've mentioned that, but he's only $100 more than Luke Donald. How is Luke Donald even playing?
Ryder Cup.
Yeah.
Probably found a way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's crazy to me. I think he's probably the best priced European in this range.
Yep. We skipped over Callum Shinkwin. Absolutely no interest.
That's fine.
Rasmus has not been good since returning. I think both of them in form. I would take Rasmus over Nikolai, I believe, which, again, at this interest, I'm okay with neither of them. Peak Adriarnas could have intrigued me here, but I mean, everything's set up for the last course in Italy, and just putrid effort from him there. I don't know. Is there really, I mean, you keep going around. You have Otegi, you have Thurston Lawrence, you have Pablo. I think Pablo would be the one, if you're going to go a different angle, that I would consider. But that's probably, I mean, he has not made a cut since 2012 in a major championship.
So that's the thing with Pablo Larrafa, is like, we always see him on the DP World Tour as this guy that can win at any point, and he's got the necessary talent. We always talk about the fact that he's beaten Montgomery, Garcia, Rory, Stenson, Otegi, whatever. It's never ever translated to decent finishes in the major championships, and in fact, the only one he's ever really made any sort of impact on is the Open, where he finished 30th in 2011. Now, he did finish 45th in this event in that same year, but miscut since in the event. I think he's going to miss the cut. I don't think that's a bold claim. The only one I was looking at, really, what about Hoshino?
That's an interesting one. I hadn't thought about it.
The only reason I'm thinking about it, like, he had that 26th place finished in the US Open. I'm pretty sure you referenced, like, he was really good with his irons that week. Good. Like, he was one of the better players in the field. Even at the PGA Championship in 2021, he missed the cut, but he was really good again with his approach play, and was just terrible putting as to why he missed the cut that week. And that seems to be the kind of flavour of him at the moment. Like, he gains his approaches in 2021 PGA, 2021 US Open, 2022 Open Championship. If he keeps doing that, he's been second in Japan twice recently. He was poor at the Sadao Open. I think there was probably a bit more interest in him doing well there. But just sometimes we see these kind of Japanese guys turn up and do something in the major championship, and I think Hoshino could be. Yeah, the main reason I looked at him is because I was looking at whether to take on Hideki in the top Japanese market, because he could potentially be injured. And I just noticed Hoshino and dived in a little bit. So I think if you were looking for some desperation plays at 6-4, I probably wouldn't recommend it, but he might be the one.
I think where I would go, if I'm going to wrap up, so I guess the only other ones we haven't discussed, Higa is also down there.
Yeah.
Not much there. Aki Stridham is making his first ever major, which is really cool for him at the age of 38. But can't be going there with that inconsistency. Micheluzzi is the minimum.
Yeah, 6K.
The minimum this week. 6K flat. Him and the Tour Pros are the ones at the minimum. He was way better than I think given credit for last week in Byron Nelson. I mean, he was inside the top 10. I think he was T10 after the first round. He found himself. I think what he gets in trouble is he can score with the best of them. When we bet him in Korea, he was first for birdies or better that week. When we looked at him at Byron Nelson, he was really, really high when it came to birdies. His approach was awesome. He couldn't really putt all that well, and just on the weekend kind of threw it away. But I woke up Friday morning thinking, man, Micheluzzi could get himself a huge elevation in this at a deep number, top 20 even. He said just his game wasn't really it over the weekend. He posts a lot on social media. But I think 6K, if I'm dropping down from Meronk or Fox, I think I would go all the way to Micheluzzi. Now, the top Aussie market is just way too difficult to really challenge him there. I don't think there's any way to really look at Micheluzzi in that kind of betting market there. But, man, if you really needed someone at the minimum, he's the one by far.
Because he you've mentioned who he's with. He's with the Club Pros, and that's just not fair. This is a guy that shot a 65 to open to Byron Nelson last week, and a Saturday 67. He's good enough, like you say, to make birdies. I would not be. Of course, you're going to be surprised if he's on the first page of the leaderboard on Thursday. I guess that's probably not the right thing to say, but it wouldn't be a complete shot that he's made enough birdies to do it. It's just to your point. I think he's capable of doing that. He probably hasn't got the finesse based on what we've seen so far to really navigate this kind of course. And look, what we're trying to do, we're trying to talk ourselves out of a 6K guy here. It's not difficult. But yeah, I think we've already said he's a really interesting development character for now, for us on the DP World Tour and probably even the PGA Tour in the future. So yeah, if you really do need a 6K guy, then he's the one, because you don't want to be messing with anybody else.
Yeah, for sure.
I think that probably does even stretch to 6'3". I don't think anyone is 6'3". I don't have any more confidence in Larafabal than him. So you're kind of scratching around. Yep.
I can remember winning lineups at Winged Foot or because of Zalatoris. He was the winner for those guys. There will be someone, in my opinion, that does it in the 6Ks or even the low 7s that gets you there at a low ownership. It was Zalatoris and it was Peters for me at that Winged Foot that year.
I want to talk Thomas Peters a little bit.
Okay.
I know he's a live guy now, and he's not the DP World guy that we want to talk about these days. But there was a little bit of life from him last week, and he tweeted about there being a little bit of life from him last week. And that's, he's only had 2 tied 17th finishes or 2 17th place finishes on live since he joined, and they're his best efforts. But he made that cut at Augusta, despite the fact that he putted absolutely terribly. And I could just see him kind of being around the top 20, top 30 after a couple of rounds, and people sort of going, "Oh, this is why he shouldn't have left for live, and he had so much to offer, etc., etc." And then probably just fading away into obscurity. But skill set wise, is he the best of if we just put him in for Euro guys just for the minute for the sake of the conversation?
Yeah, he would yes, 100%. Flushes it like an absolute flusher, right? I would think. He was leading Winged Foot at the turn at 36 holes. He was in the mix. I think yes, he would be the one. Not the one. I guess if you get a chance to talk one live guy, I will talk a live sleeper. I would say my actual favorite play in the 6Ks is Burmeister. I think.
Yeah.
I think Dean, that setup, and that's what the other guys have, right? But Dean comes in at least with a little bit more form than those guys. Just an exceptional driver of the golf ball and an unbelievable chipper. Unbelievable, right? The other factor is he can't putt. He's not a good putter. When Min Woo can chip and putt and hit it longer, I would still pick Min Woo. Still pick Herbert, I believe. But I mean, Dean did it at St. Andrews too, like when it required that skill set. So I'll be curious on the greens this week on how well these guys could putt it, or is it just going to be so difficult that, like, really good chip and you put yourself within 6 feet if you just make enough pars. Because Dean could do that.
I know Birmingham. I think Ben put him up in the kind of South African market, and
yes,
then
that's a great tip. I love that tip.
Like, and I do like the rationale behind it, and I like everything you just said. But he is like 6,900 and priced as if like he could actually be a factor. I think Brendan Steele's the one.
And we're getting full live here. We got to stop.
We got to stop. But like, I think he's the one. Like that would be the guy. Like, that's end of discussion. Like, look at his PGA Championship record. Look at his driving stats.
I'll go one more live, and this is not good. This is really bad. Do you listen to Shotgun Start at all?
I don't, but I've heard snippets. Yeah.
You really need to. There's some rumors floating out there. Some bad rumors, Tom. The rumors are that Guido could be gone.
No.
Yes, there's some heavy Guido Liv rumors out there. His girlfriend works for Liv. She's working the events.
Oh no.
We might have to give it up, Tom. We might have to give it up if Guido goes. Either that or full lifts.
He's going to be ineligible for the Ryder Cup that we thought he was destined to make.
Maybe that's a swan song,
I mean, you think about all these greats: Sergio Garcia, Lee Westwood, Ian Poulter, Guido Migliozzi.
Those are the ones that kill me. The Peters, the Deans, like those are the guys that like, man, you are our homies.
I think it's the fact that they just had things going for them. Like I completely, this is another live discussion, but like you can just so easily make the case for like a Poulter or Westwood, etc. There's just no decision to make, right? Like it's so obvious why they're doing it, Stenson, etc. These guys have just had such a tough decision. I think you've seen the guys with like Justin Rose, Ricky Fowler, Jason Day on the PGA Tour have had to make those decisions and really doubled down on the PGA and done well. Maybe these guys could have done it in Europe, but I hope for your sake, Sky, that Guido is a vicious rumor and one that maybe is targeted. Like when you get like targeted ads on like podcasts and things like that could be.
Like no one else heard that but me. Like,
yeah,
it was only one on my feed.
Yeah, like I feel like that's definitely.
It was probably the Live guys trying to get me in. That must have been it, Tom.
That's it.
They're going to be in the comments here too.
Yeah.
If they listen to 50 minutes of us talking to the 10 DP World Tour guys, you could maybe mix in.
And by the way, that 10 was a stretch as well. That's why we're having this discussion.
Okay, let's land the plane. Rank your top 3 of interest of this week.
Moronk, Olesen, still Yannick Paul, but very mildly.
Herbert, Min Woo, and I will say if we can get health on Robert McIntyre, that would be my 3. Now that's a little bit on the more expensive side. You're getting Moronk in there, who's 6,500. I think is a good steal. I think that's a good way to land it, and hopefully one of these guys wins us. I mean, there's in order to take down that big GPP, like you're going to need somebody low owned from this range to really pay off for you this week.
Do you think there's going to be any of these guys that are going to be highly owned, like for relative to the price range?
I think no.
No, because there's just so many good PGA Tour alternatives, right? And that's what people are familiar with.
Like the highest projection outside of the top guys that we discussed, like with Tommy and Hatton and those guys, is Maroc projected 4 to 7% owned. Like
yes, so I think Moronk Olesen can win you a tournament.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I would agree in that stance. All right, man. Let's have a big week, and we get right back into the DP World Tour following this on a good stretch run. We'll go to KLM Open, I believe, right next week.
Yep.
Leading us into the U.S. Open. There was U.S. Open qualifying today. If you run down the list of who made it,
Germichet,
Germichet, Wilco, Ross Fisher, David Horsey, Jens Dantorp. I don't get paid out on the each way, but Alejandro Del Rey So I decided the top 5 today, and Matthew Pavon are all. Or did Pavon might have not got through the playoff. I think Pavon might be out, but he tied for 4th there with those guys. So, but we'll have a good stretch run of some summer golf there overseas, and we'll be here talking it every single week. But let's have a fun PGA Championship. Hopefully, one of our guys comes through.
Let's get some fun in before these vicious things take over for us, Sky, and ruin our lives. I'm looking forward to it. It should be a good week. Everyone, enjoy making these lineups. Put some of these Euro guys in if you like the cases we've made. And good luck.
Yep. Thanks, guys. Talk to you next week. See you.